are you?
I'm good.
Where'd you get this from?
You get them online.
Oh,
Holy cow. Hey, are we gonna, I didn't see on the packet unless it's changed. Is Miss Trojan gonna,
Swear.
swear in? Yeah, is it in?
Right here.
Oh, there it is. Holy cow.
yeah. Did you ever get in down there today? What's that? Did you get in down there today? I know there were short of key waiting for Hans. All right, all right. Good enough. Yeah, I knew some of the keys down there were on our master key
On
system.
Monday and
We
Tuesday.
could open that okay, but a lot of the
Yesterday,
things,
daily, I had to do
the hardware,
inventory
they go buy a master lock and put it on there. And
because.
our master keys don't work on those stuff.
We have all these.
Oh, for after elections.
I know, you're right, because.
We're having a hard time seeing what that is.
I don't want, yeah.
Actually, I
I'm not sure what
was.
it is.
A lot of it had to do with cyber attack.
But we need both keys to get this one unlocked. Yeah, when you get back into town, let me know. We'll get Hans, we'll get his key or we'll take a set of both.
Things need to happen.
Yeah, I figured that's what you were getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I signed this, but I don't have the
You need this
I-
thing?
iPad today. I think I do. I got here and wasn't able to get on my emails, but I'm like, oh no,
Mary's
this
trying
guy
to get
is
it
happening.
She got a bigger one in the
Yeah.
bag in her office.
Mary thought she'd got some piece. Here's June 6th meeting.
Yeah.
I know, I don't know why that came up.
Was the whole package, the June's first package?
Yeah,
So we killed a couple trees tonight, right now at Kinda.
unfortunately.
Being a fourth generation logger, I felt good. Finally got some.
That's right. That's right.
I did take pictures of the eggs this year.
You did or didn't?
No, I didn't. My caviar ones I put in the freezer. We were supposed to eat them this weekend, but she called last night and said, my Travis is turned 88 on Sunday, so we were gonna go there Saturday to take her out to dinner, but she's too busy.
Mhm.
So there's some in the freezer, but the rest are in jars.
Oh, good.
They are beautiful.
Probably had that.
It is.
Something was passed
Takes
on.
forever.
Gotcha, yeah.
I mean, can you just kind of go around like this?
Yep.
Talk it up.
In the beginning, you
Yep.
can.
Oh, look at print.
The case of having multiple conversations going on, responding in the wrong one or something. Because I'm sorry to say, Casey, I don't think they make bigger iPads, so.
Not right now.
I think that's as big an iPad as you're gonna get.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that with the iPad. But all these words that are more than 3 letters are what's getting me. It's like, what's going on here? Somebody, I need a thesaurus. Do we still have those?
Yeah, it's called Google.
It's called my kid.
Yeah, there you go.
My daughter usually takes care of this for me, yeah.
Yeah.
Marcos tonight. How you doing tonight?
How are you?
Good. It's always entertaining watching you at Southeast Conference. You're like fish in the water. It's right in your element. Nice to.
Mary, I didn't read that email. I've been doing tests for 2 days on the Halloween thing. Is that a city functioning? I didn't read the whole thing.
Yeah, staff put together
Oh,
a Halloween party for the 25th. The
that
council
was
did.
Kelsey that sent that.
Yeah, Kelsey sent that email out.
Okay.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:30. Roll call vote, please.
Jan Trojan. Here. Shauna Thomas. Here. Josh Bennett.
Here.
Michael Campbell.
Here.
Sean McKinley.
Absent excuse tonight.
Millie Schoonover. Here.
All right, moving on to swearing of the new elected official and council members.
And Sean, please stand up. And raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Jan Trojan,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend. Sorry, this is, okay, sorry, it's long. Do solemnly swear
I solemnly swear to support and defend
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution and the laws of the state of Alaska,
the Constitution and the laws of the state of Alaska,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Craig.
and the charter and the ordinances for the city of Craig.
That I will perform the duties of council member of City of Craig, Alaska,
I will perform the council duties for the city of Alaska,
upon which I am about to enter,
on which I'm about to enter,
honestly, faithfully, and impartially,
honestly, faithfully, and impartially,
and will do even and exact justice
will do even and exact justice
to all persons to the best of my ability.
to all persons to the best of my ability.
Someone need a copy of that.
I was just happy I wasn't the one who had to do that, because I was looking for a copy, so, thank you guys for dedicating your time to the city of Craig, it is greatly appreciated. Moving on to consent agenda,
Move to adopt?
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda is approved. Okay, opening up, hearing from the public. Oh, man.
So, Mr. Mayor, there's an item that was included in the packet regarding the discussion of a formation of a regional CQA. And a couple of folks, I'm guessing, are folks I've been emailing back and forth with, so now would be a good time to invite them to kind of share.
Absolutely. I always wonder why we have new faces here.
Small town.
Guess I'm one of those.
Haley just made me come.
We knew why you were here.
Not just that.
Great. Well, good evening. Thanks for having us here this evening. Nice to see you in person, Brian.
Yeah.
And Michael as well. My name is Lauren Howard. I live in Sitka, Alaska. I work with the Alaska Sustainable Fisheries Trust, the Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association.
My name is Brittany Tolan. I work for Catch Together, which is a national nonprofit of fishing associations around the country.
And I guess initially, how familiar is the city council with CQE? So I don't go too in-depth or more in-depth, depending, because I know it's something that's been spoken about in this forum for a long time. So just to kind of have a small premise of what might be appropriate for sharing.
Well, you can give a broad overview, that way everybody has a refresher of, yeah. It's been many years, so this is just starting to get rolled out again, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a lot of the work that we do is around fisheries access. We've had a lot of fisheries permits quota leave our rural and native communities. A lot of boats leaving, not coming back, right? So we're not having as much economic activity because of commercial fishing in our small towns. Our children aren't seeing that as an opportunity for their future, maybe for their career. So the viability of that is kind of waning in a sense. And so ways to address that are how do we get permits back? How do we get people into vessels or into permits? They're extremely expensive, right? So there's a lot of barriers that people look at when they're thinking about commercial fishing. So the CQE program was developed in the early 2000s, and it was kind of looking to address some of that inequity to allow a community to purchase quota to then lease to their community residents. There's a lot of limitations on the program that are written in federal regulation, such as the types of communities that can participate. Craig qualifies in that you have to be less than 1,500 people off the road system and have a history in the halibut and sablefish fisheries. Actually, in 2005, I want to say, Craig did a very extensive plan at looking into how to develop a CQE, and it's actually been a great guidepost for us as well, looking at this and ways to go about it and kind of learning. And they got so far as to look at everything and decided that they couldn't come up with the money to buy the quota. So a lot of communities face the same problem. There's currently only one community in Southeast who has established a CQE, and that's Hoonah. And there's a few out west in Kodiak and Adak that have as well. So a lot of the barriers for the CQE program were administrative burden. I know everyone's very busy already, you're short-staffed, so to add another program to the books, and then obviously the price of quota. So when we looked at the CQE program, we recognized that, and we said, well, maybe some things that we could look at were establishing a regional CQE, where we could centralize the administrative burdens for multiple communities into one place. And then how do we come up with money for quota? Well, there's a lot of wonderful grant opportunities or combination creative financing that we could potentially come up with to purchase quota. And when I say purchasing quota, I'm primarily looking at halibut quota. I think a lot of people really want access to halibut because it's generally fished closer to town, could be in a smaller vessel. So this is a program that we're looking at potentially developing, but to do that, we want to know if communities want that. You know, like we're not going to come here and say, hey, we did this great thing for you. So we're here on the island to talk to different community members, tribal organizations, and multiple communities on the island as well, just to gauge interest and potentially kind of developing a regional CQE for Southeast Alaska and what that might look like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome to Prince Wells. So can two different entities have, share the same interest in the quota?
Yeah, so actually background on that. So there's more than just us. So Alaska Salmon Fisheries Trust and Catch Together, Spruce Root, ANC Alaska, and Clequot and Haida are all part of this initiative. And we're just kind of the partner organizations that recognize the same issues and want to try to do what we can to kind of address them. And so I guess getting into some of the weeds of it, the program is very, like I said, outlaid in federal regulation. You have to create a new nonprofit organization. Then that becomes designated as the community quota entity. Then that entity is the one that holds the quota. So the quota is actually held by that entity and it's designated to the community that it's meant to be fished in. And the people that are meant to have access to that have to be residents of that community, 12 months for the previous 12 months, like full-time residents of the community. And so in a regional CQE, we could potentially have multiple communities participating, but there would still be quota designations per community specifically.
And each community would be able to kind of write the rules around who gets access to the quota, how they maintain like good standing. So you can cater it to like your priorities if you want to prioritize greater need, for example, or maybe there's a certain threshold of commercial fishing experience that you're after. You can prioritize how you like.
There has to be a quota management plan that's written and actually submitted to NOAA for approval with the entity. And ideally, obviously, a community would write their own plan. We would help to facilitate that, but we know that every community is going to look a little different. And also in terms of the size of the blocks of quota potentially that people may want access to. So yeah, I think our intention is just to come here to share the work and to talk to community members, fishermen, people who might be interested to see what this might look like in the community. You know, what the size of those quota blocks might be, what a management plan might look like, what access to halibut even looks like in this community. You know, we've heard a lot of varying information across our conversations, and it's all been really positive and interesting.
Do you have any questions?
I have a question. So the city of Craig did get a permit to actually do this for our community. But what you're offering is, does our permit have any standing, or would it not even be necessary if we were to engage in this CQE with you?
What permit are you referring to?
Probably referring to the transfer eligibility certificate.
Yeah, we could actually buy quota ourselves. Isn't that the way it works?
Yes.
But we come up with the issue. You said we never come up with the money. I mean, it's expensive.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, my understanding was you did not form the CQE.
We did.
You did. So but is it in standing and actual?
No, because
So you'd have to
the administrative burden of
Right.
keeping the corporation on the record in Alaska, paying $100 or $200 a year,
And the reporting.
and the reporting requirement, and keeping a minimum of 3 board members.
Yeah.
We did for the first maybe 3 or 4 years, right? And so we've done most of what you've talked about.
Yeah.
We, not only the business plan that I wrote back in 2004, 2005, but we formed the corporation. The corporation was formed and designated as a 501c nonprofit. We applied to NOAA and received the transfer eligibility certificate for the Prince of Wales Island Community Holding Corporation, which was the name of the corporation. We developed our IFQ distribution plan and policies, and of course had bylaws for the corporation that centered around that. We had long discussions about what our priorities were, and at the time, just to let you know how far this goes back, Gordon James was one of the original board members on the CQE for Craig. And the board members at the time, their biggest priority was building opportunity for emerging fishermen, right? So really creating circumstances where new fishermen that couldn't afford to buy blocks of quota share could use community held IFQ. But we were never able, other than $15,000 that the city set aside one year, which is a drop in the bucket for IFQ purchase, we're never able to fund the IFQ. So we were at the point where all we were waiting for was money, and we could have purchased quota and put it into action.
Yeah. So Michael, to address that, and you could have a single community CQE 100%. Craig wanted to revive their own individual. This is our partner Brooke from For Sure. You could absolutely revolve that, and that's something that we've talked to other communities about as well that may have a CQE that was maybe not current, would need some updating, and we'd be happy to also support that effort if it meant looking at fundraising options or ways that we can support that, because we recognize that not all communities are going to maybe want the same thing or maybe want to be part of a regional, and there are some limitations on quota purchase at this time for the entity in total that could be limiting for some communities that might see this be a real boon for them.
I think maybe to answer your question directly, and I'm sorry, this is maybe outdated, so you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection is that the TEC is issued to the CQE corporation. And so my guess would be that a new regional corporation would have to go through the process of getting its own TEC.
So my question though is we wouldn't need to do that if we worked through you if that come to pass.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's similar, like Heidelberg did the same thing, right? We spoke with them and they had a CQE that they didn't take to the next step either, right? And so yes, we could start over, or you could revive a personal CQE for Craig if that was like the mission that the city or the community wanted to follow.
You just can't have two, you can't have
Yeah.
both, but it seems like yours
Yes.
is not, is like
Not current.
not
It's not.
active. so
Probably
then-
would be more work to revive.
Okay. Yeah.
Then just sort of,
Yeah,
you'd
to
be
start
starting
from
over,
scratch.
basically, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's an important point though, Brittany,
Yeah.
is that under the NOAA regulations, a community cannot have more than one CQE representing the community. So it would be one or the other.
So with that being said, we have nonprofit organizations here in the, municipality that, could help fund potentially, and, assist with, purchasing quota with the city of Craig, and then have us administer along with them, basically the
And
quota.
that's where we're looking at that, is those kind of partnerships. We're like, well, it's hard to do it on your own, but if you can come together and join resources
Absolutely.
to apply for funding or to utilize funding, and, having that kind of one person that's doing all the paperwork for the quota transfer. There's a decent amount of paperwork that has to occur annually for the actual transfer and the applications and reporting, which could be a lot if it's like, and Huna is their city administrator that does all of that, right? So it's, yeah, but absolutely, that's our idea. The more people we can come together.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Do it.
absolutely. Now that we waited all this time, we probably saved so much money on quota. I can imagine.
Well, that was the funny part, that the plan, driving together, the price of quota was $15 a pound.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I know that,
Now
yeah.
it's-
I'm sure
That
it's
was
12
our
now,
biggest
right?
downfall was that we put the plan together and formed the CQE and got our TEC and started shopping for quota right about the time that the price of quota, I think literally doubled in a year. Went to $30 a pound for halibut, and sablefish was quite a bit less, but still more expensive than it was when we did the model. And it has continued to grow.
Well, and it's come down quite a bit right now, like, I think seen some sales at 40.
Yeah.
Sablefish is 7, and then it's
Right.
a great time to buy a sablefish. If you wanna go fishing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I don't know if there's any other questions, from other community members or.
Thank you for taking the time from the community.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Absolutely, thank you for having me.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
So just as a general question, I don't want to public comment, but it's not on the agenda, but while they're here, is this something generally that the council would like us to at least investigate?
Yeah,
Okay.
especially if we get to have our own local guidelines.
And there's been other entities that have expressed, would love to partner with us, potentially and take on a lot of the work that might be, too much for the city to handle. So I think we definitely want to move forward with this in some shape or form.
Happy to continue to work with
Yes.
these folks and their organizations.
I can't imagine this price is gonna go down next year, so we gotta get it while it's hot.
Who knows? I know.
Thank you, council. Thank you guys for being here.
All right, moving on to reading of correspondence from Shelby Beck. She put a letter in there thanking council for sending us a card and trying to pass all the cards that we get to the city to everybody for giving their appreciation to helping fund their trip to Spain. I know 3 words in Spanish now.
Your favorite child made it into the meeting packet.
Yes, yes.
Oh, is there one of the signatures? Nice.
I did. Okay, moving on to,
Did she say that?
no.
If she did, I missed
Did
it.
she?
Thanks. Did she
Oh,
say
thank you,
that?
love you, yes. Favorite child. There we go. Yep, yep.
You should save that one day. so you
Yeah.
can Go back and prove that your daughter
Oh,
loves you.
she lets them know every day.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Moving on to consideration of resolution and ordinances. Motion for resolution 2416, authorize city administrator to apply for state of Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, Alaska Drinking on funds.
Move to approve resolution 24-16, authorizing the city administrator, Byron Tuckland, to apply for up to $1.8 million and DEC loan funds for design and engineering related to replacement of the raw water main and system.
Second.
Open for discussion.
Be happy to answer any questions. And it's in the memo, but just to be clear, so two things. One is that this is kind of a subset of the approved $4 million loan that the council approved us to apply for. DEC has split it into two parts. One to allow just for engineering work. And the second point is that the $1.8 million of loan funds is 100% forgiven, principal forgiven. So what we end up paying is a 0.5% loan origination fee, and then the loan itself is completely forgiven. So that's great money as money goes.
Not hearing any question or comments? Take a roll call vote.
Janice Trojan,
Yes.
Shawna Thomas,
Yes.
Josh Bennett,
Yes.
Michael Kevich,
Yes.
Millie Schoonover,
Yes.
All right, motion approved. All yeses. Moving on to unfinished business, Title 16 Review Committee.
If there's a motion, I'd be happy to talk about it if you want to before a motion comes forward.
Motion to establish a CMC Title 16 Committee as outlined.
My personal feeling is, I think Willie Bryan explained it, last meeting, if we do a special committee with some limit on the number of council members on it, then we have, it's a little easier to hold meetings and such. We don't have quite as many obligations. And everything has to come back to the council for decision, so there's no, it's not like something will happen without final approval from the council. So I'm a little more comfortable with that approach.
Same.
And that's the approach to the motion.
Yeah. So somebody wants to make a motion?
Move to establish CMC Title 16 Review Committee as outlined of.
Second.
Any more discussion? All right, take a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. All righty, moving on to new business. APEI, AMLJ, IA, consolidation plan and vote. One of those days, Shawna.
Mr. Mayor, can we step back?
Yes.
Half a step? Are there two council members that are particularly want to sit on that committee?
Oh, please.
Okay, Josh and Mike. Okay, is that okay? The council's okay with those two council members? And
Yeah, last meeting they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the planning commission, next week, I'll ask the same question of them for two planning commissioners. There is the ability, if there's a third council member, trying to think of staying under the limits in the Open Meetings Act. So if the third council member or the mayor would also like to participate in the committee, that would work as well. Is there anybody else that wants to? Okay, so we'll have Mike and Josh. I'll ask for two volunteers from the planning commission and bring all those names back at the first meeting in November for approval of appointment.
So Brian, will someone let us know when the meetings are? Because I was looking at my calendar today
Okay.
for the next 2 months and I don't have room.
Okay.
If they were evening meetings, maybe. So I don't know if you're having a daytime meeting, like at 4 or 5.
It's going to be up to the committee when the
Okay.
committee wants to meet. Would you like your name tentatively put down?
Yes.
Okay. I do caution, the only caution that I would have, if your name's not on the committee, showing up at committee meetings may throw us into Open Meetings Act territory, which is the reason that we're designating just a few council members and a couple of planning commission members. But that will allow you to show up and stay within the count. So we're still where we need to be. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, back to the next one.
No, perfect. move back on to APDI, AMLJIA, consolidation plan. Basically just looking for authorization for the city finance director and mayor to vote yes on the consolidation.
So you're looking for motions?
Yep.
Move to authorize the city administrator, finance director, or mayor to vote yes on the APEI/AMLJIA consolidation.
Second.
Open for discussion?
Hours and hours of insurance.
All those in favor?
Try and answer questions, but you guys are in for,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all ayes, it's passing. Moving on to naming of places and facilities. Places and facilities.
There's a recommended motion on the memo, but if the council has some other direction or wants some discussion. We did find a naming policy. It was kind of weirdly adopted, which is why we didn't find it in the short time that we had to look for it prior to the last meeting. My main suggestion is that we need to put it into municipal code, which is where this kind of a policy should be kept. That would make it easy to find in the future. But it's also an opportunity if the council would like to recommend any changes to the policy. So if it looks fine the way it is, and you want us just to move forward with an ordinance to put it in code, that's the motion that's on the memo. If the council would like to discuss any changes or hold this over to another meeting for fuller discussion on changes to the policy before we write an ordinance, it's really council's option at this point. But the motion right on the floor right now, or the motion on the memo, would be to adopt the naming policy into the municipal code.
The only thing I saw under, where are we at? Under 2 objectives, it doesn't state roads, ensure the name given to city park facilities and buildings. It doesn't state roads, but when you go down to, I just read it. You go down after 8, honorary renaming of public places, the individual, and it goes in and it mentions roads. So it'll probably need to mention road up here in objectives. City parks, facilities, roads, and buildings.
And if we do want to spend a little more time on this, we can. Ketchikan does have a pretty nice one written out that does give other suggestions of, other names and so on and so forth and other processes. Ours is pretty vague, but if we want to move forward with ours, more than welcome. But Ketchikan did have a pretty good outline one as well. That was pretty helpful read. That was a little more in depth.
I'm happy to bring that back.
Yeah.
There's no motion on the floor, so if council just generally would like me to bring that back along with this one for more of a discussion before we talk about staff starting the ordinance, that's a good direction to go as well.
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment. In 2019, in just the few minutes that I Googled on the city website, in 2019, this council spent from May to November discussing this policy. 7 months. I mean, do we really, I don't know why it didn't go into the ordinance or whatever happens after they voted, because then it was voted on and it passed.
Yeah, I agree. We can
So-
definitely adopt the motion on the table for sure. Yes.
I guess I'm just at a loss of why a previous council spent 7 months discussing it and passed it and it dropped after that.
Well, I'll give you a short explanation. It didn't drop, it existed. When we were tasked with researching naming policy, it appears that the normal course of action for most municipalities in Alaska is that these kinds of policies are adopted in one of 2 places. They're either adopted into the municipal code, which seems to be very common, probably more common, or they're adopted into council policy manuals, which a lot of municipalities have. that contain how to run meetings and miscellaneous policies like this. The City of Craig Council has never chosen to adopt a council policy manual. So we don't have a manual that has these miscellaneous policies in it, right? And for whatever reason, and I can't answer why either, in 2019, the council at the time chose to adopt the naming policy as a resolution, which gets filed in with the resolutions, and the discussions thereof get filed with the minutes. And I will say that Mary and I both spent, I don't know, a couple of hours looking for a naming policy. We were looking specifically in municipal code, and we were looking at ordinances that would have adopted the policy in code. And we were looking at previously known actions that named places, coincidentally, which were all before the naming policy was adopted, in order to see if on those resolutions there was reference to a municipal code section. And none of that, it didn't appear in any of that, right? So we weren't looking for an ordinance or for a resolution that adopted a policy, because that's not typically from our understanding of it. And I can't really speak to why it was done the way that it was in
I'd like to
2019.
thank Shauna for finding it for us.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all on the city
You know,
website.
I get it, but we were looking other places.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of information.
We were looking in the obvious
Yeah,
places.
we were looking in the places that we thought it would have been and spent time doing that, could not find it, and needed to get the packets out and move on with the
Yeah,
discussion with
for
the
sure.
council. So that's the main reason for my recommendation to, even if it's the same policy exactly, to adopt it into the municipal code, right? Because that's what we would normally expect. But that's the short answer anyway of why we didn't find this policy, regardless of how much time the council spent on it in 2019, right?
7 months is a long time.
It is, I get that.
So I would like to move to direct staff to prepare an ordinance adopting the naming of public places policy into municipal code as amended, as Josh Bennett stated, to add the word road. And I forgot what section.
It would be, yeah,
Under section 2.
second.
Any more discussion?
Wait for a second. Mr. Mayor.
There was a
Millie had a
second.
second.
Oh, yep, there's a second.
Thanks, Mel.
What's the difference between the Ketchikan one and the one we wrote?
Basically, it just kind of outlines it more. You talked about, which, you do anyways, you talked about, getting a list of names. I think in, this case, I was really surprised that we haven't done anything to honor all the firefighters, all the volunteers yet to this point in time. Having discussion with other people in the community. They run into these fires every day and they don't do it for the name on the front of the building, but not giving them the recognition. And they don't ask for the recognition, but after thinking of it, there's a plaque on the wall right there, City of Craig Mayors. I would love to start discussion at some point in time of creating a plaque in honor of the fire chiefs and the first responders and the EMS, as well as, even we brainstormed some ideas of taking an annual photo of them yearly and posting it up. And that way, when you bring the school kids up there and throughout the years, you have people who served on there for over 30 years. And you can look at, there's my uncle, there he was 20, there he was, like, holy cow. And that starts going a long way with the kids in the community. And so not looking at the whole process and what it means to, everybody in the community. I've had extensive conversations with people and it brought a lot to light. So I think there's total ways to show respect for all of our volunteer firefighters. And I'd like to start kind of a appreciation day for, or something for all of our volunteers at some point in time, and maybe allocate some funds for a plaque or even a first responders barbecue or something. It's just, but, the different process of catch cans was basically getting a list of people's names who've been fire chief or, or whatever that may, be a good candidate to name that facility after them as well. And I think with a little more outlined, it may have a little more planning process. But I think this is a great policy. I actually, without knowing it, the policy was almost followed. But it was, however we want to move forward with the policy, but the difference between catch can, there was a few more outlines. But,
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, my recollection, I don't have it in front of me, Jan, but my recollection of reading the Ketchikan Gateway Boroughs Code, some of the biggest differences, there were a lot of minor differences, like how long a person had to be deceased and so on, and a lot of language differences between the two. Obviously, they're written by different people. But probably the biggest procedural difference between the two is that the Craig policy pretty much leaves it to the mayor and council to nominate and then choose or approve naming. The Ketchikan policy, the primary process is that the mayor or the council or assembly would nominate a name, and then it would go to a naming committee who would publicly solicit comment and other names, and then would bring a recommendation back to the assembly, which may or may not be the name that the assembly sent to the naming committee in the first place. And then the assembly would adopt or not adopt. So it was seemed to be I don't know if more robust is the right word, but a different public process.
And we wouldn't be looking at adopting the whole catch can policy. It'd just be something that you'd look at to compare to the policy that we have. But I'm happy doing whatever getting this one on the books. And
Either way,
we got a motion on the floor. Any more discussion? I'll do a roll call vote. For ordinance.
Janice Trojan,
Yes.
Sean Thomas,
Yes.
Josh Bennett,
Yes.
Michael Kittredge,
Yes.
Millie Schoenberg,
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, yes, it is.
Yes. Yeah, I want to acknowledge, because it goes along in the lines with what you've just said about acknowledging all of our first responders. I want to acknowledge Martha Woods' letter. I think she did a pretty good job of sharing with us that we have to also recognize people in the past. I mean, I've been associated with the city almost 40 years, and there's clearly 2 or 3 people I can look back on and say that, they should be recognized. And so I think Jan's suggestion, which is kind of what you're saying, having a plaque or something, I think that had some real merit, and maybe that's something we can think about as we move forward with our new facility.
I love that idea. I love the picture idea. I think we should be having some sort of a picnic or barbecue or something in their honor every year. I would think.
Thank you. Moving on to proposal for replacement of chemical control system at the Craig City Aquatic Center.
Move to reappropriate $17,757 from FY25 Aquatic Center Capital Project budget and $14,000 from FY25 Aquatic Center personal budget to fund up to $31,757 to replace chemical control and feed system at the Aquatic Center.
Second.
Open for discussion.
Personal budget, where's the 14,000? Is that higher?
That's from vacant positions.
Vacant positions? So we're taking $14,000 from vacant positions through June of 25?
Yeah, through the end of June. And most of that is accounting for unspent, right? So we're not gonna hire more personnel
No,
at the aquatic center than we would have budgeted at the beginning of the year. And so positions that are vacant for some time create unspent funds, which we occasionally move over to other things. And in this case, that's what we're doing.
no, the only reason I'm asking is because even, I think in her last report, she stated she was trying to find more personnel.
Right.
And I don't wanna try to take away any dollars.
Yeah,
This is not money for staff from today through the end of June. This is money that we did not spend on staff from July 1st to today.
Okay,
Thank you for clarifying.
any more discussion? Moving to a roll call vote.
Janice Trojan,
Yes.
Sean Thomas,
Yes.
Doug Bennett,
yes.
Michael Kentridge,
Yes.
Alice Gabbard.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All yeses. Moving on to adopt an elder donation.
This money's already been appropriated, there's no motion required, just looking for some direction.
Is everybody up to date with adopting elder donation? We approved $2,000, I believe, to adopt the elder donation a few months ago. One of the council members suggested that that was used for all the elders in the community. It was agreed upon. We got contact through the CTA that said that they no longer could fund all the elders, just the tribal elders, and we're returning.
It wasn't funding. The
Not- not-
conversation I had with the CTA was their staff did not have the bandwidth to handle more than
Yeah.
just the tribal elders.
Yeah, so they returned $1,000 out of the.
Offered to.
Offered to, okay, nothing been returned yet, okay, my mistake, and then,
I asked them to hold off on returning any of the funds until council, the council has whatever options it wants to. It can leave the $2,000 donation stand. It can accept half of it returned, ask for all of it to return, or ask us to have another conversation with the CTA about serving all elders. But since there was the council's clear direction that the donation was made on the condition that all elders in Craig were served, and CTA doesn't have the ability to do that, it was fair to bring this back to the council to see which of those options the council wanted to move forward with.
So the list of elders that came from the city, how many, was that all elders?
Well, it turned out that we had not sent them a list yet. We were still, and it gotten dropped, but one of the problems that we had when we put the list together was it got put on pause because one of the things we have to do is be careful about what's confidential and not confidential information that we have. And so we can't just give out a list of names and mailing addresses and phone numbers unless it's given it to us in a way that makes it public information. And so that came to me to review. We didn't follow up on a discussion about what we could and couldn't release, and other things happened. So that list hasn't been sent. But an option is for us to go back and clear up the confidentiality issues and send that list if that's what the council would like to do. But my discussion with the CTA staff is it's not a matter of them knowing what elders were on our list. It was a matter of them not having the capacity to serve more than just the tribal elders, period.
I think Millie was asking, do you know how many were on the list?
I don't remember.
About 80.
Was there about 80? But we don't know how much overlap there was
And
either.
that starts at what age? Is it 65 or 60?
I think the list that we put together was based on our senior tax exempt cards.
Okay.
And so our list was based on Craig residents who have applied for and received a senior tax exempt card. That's the only,
Tax exemption.
which one? Or the senior property tax exemption, yeah. So those are the two sources that we have. And that's where I'm not sure what we can release and what we can't without individual permission. But regardless, we don't know, one of the things that we don't know, I don't think, unless you did it, Mary, was how many overlapping elders there were. We don't know how many elders were covered by already as tribal members that were on our list, because obviously there's a large overlap.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry about that. So the CTA originally asked for 1,000, or it doesn't, I didn't see.
I don't think they made it, I think
Oh,
Yeah,
just
we
the
appropriated
general
it.
donation.
we made a motion to
Oh,
appropriate that amount.
Yeah.
Okay. And can I ask why the staff didn't, I guess, didn't give them a list? I mean, I just heard your whole spiel about confidentiality, but I mean, how long does it take to call?
It got dropped. That's all it was, is we got the list together, this looming question of confidentiality was there, and before we got it answered, we got working on other things, and it got dropped.
Okay.
My feeling on this, because CTA offers a lunch once a month and it's open to all the elders. And I was here when President Cook, when the question was asked, can you open it to everyone? He said yes. My gut feeling is he did not share that with the staff person. I could be mistaken.
That's exactly what happened.
And I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when they do something for elders, they pull staff from other departments to help. You know, they're not gonna be doing this very often, so I would like it back on the table
Okay.
to include all elders.
And I'm happy to have that conversation with CTA, if that's the general consensus of the council.
Okay.
Could we request to maybe make a list of what, maybe just a rough number of how many elders that would be added to the list, so we could, I mean, no names, no nothing, because there's an overlap, there's,
Right.
you know, so if there's 80 elders on our list, there may already be 40 that they're already serving, or 60, and so that other 20 might give them kind of a broad perspective of what, I mean, with.
If they can share their list up here, would probably help.
Yeah, that would be
Yes,
the way.
absolutely,
to do it.
that's a great suggestion.
You know,
Is one party or the other sharing the list.
and if we have conflict, yeah, so if they could share, and I personally would like to see if we can put on our site, our internet site, the luncheon that the CTA already offers every week for their seniors,
They do it
so
once a month.
once a month,
Yeah.
once a month.
Don't do the every week.
Once a month. If they,
Knocking on the
so then the seniors definitely know, because I've gone there and the attendance isn't always really high. So at least they can get a good meal
I
every.
mean, we have people from Heidelberg,
Yeah.
Kawak, Kasan.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
It's not uncommon for Mary to post events around town, so if CTA provides information, I don't see any reason that,
Yeah,
that the clerk can't post it on the city's Facebook page or website.
please, thank you. It's just a meal.
And it's
Okay.
always yummy.
Well, we'll go
They've
back
got
to
some
the,
good cooks, I kid you not.
we'll go back to the question. I'll have Mary finish the research out as
Okay.
to what should be considered confidential and what can be released. We'll ask CTA for their list so we can compare overlaps. And then we can work towards getting a list of the difference back to CTA and have a conversation with them about serving all of those elders.
I think the main problem is that Yvette Taylor is our
Yes,
culture
Right,
coordinator.
she's who I talked to.
And she does it on her own.
I wanna see.
So adding, even if it's
Right, and
40, you know.
And
it's
that's the
still a lot.
impression that I got from
Yeah.
her, to be honest, is that it doesn't matter if the number is 10 or 50, that she's maxed out right now with the tribal elders.
Yeah.
And so adding the community elders back would be a stretch,
Yeah.
regardless of the number.
I mean, because it took her about a week to deliver the first batch of packages, because people weren't home.
Yeah.
They weren't responding, some were on vacation. You know, there was a handful of different reasons why, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
there's perishable food in the donation boxes and, you know.
No, I totally get the lack of staff in trying to do more work than you have staff for, trust me.
Yeah.
And I'm good with whatever decision that the council makes regarding the donation. It just, the CTA called the city unprompted and offered to return half of the donation. When we looked back at the minutes of the meeting, the donation was made under a pretty clear
Yeah.
requirement or request.
Yeah.
And so I felt that it was appropriate that the council decide whether to ask for half, all, or none of the money back. I'm happy to talk to Yvette, but I think my conversation with her matches up, Shauna, with your assessment. I don't think she's gonna wanna take, I don't think she's gonna wanna take on one more elder, right? And so I don't foresee that, I don't foresee that happening, although I'm happy to have that conversation. With that being said, again, I'm open to whatever direction. The CTA has offered to return half of the donation. Council's okay with that, or would like the full donation returned, or none of it?
Half sounds reasonable, doesn't it?
It's a council policy call. Council donated the money under a certain condition. It's up to the council to decide whether to hold to that condition or allow some flexibility.
I'd like to have a conversation.
Yeah.
A
Yes.
conversation, because I don't want the money back, because I want to, like, Mike wanted, we all wanted to help the seniors.
Right.
And this, getting the money back, we're not getting anything out of it. We're here to help, and we just need to have another conversation of how we can jointly facilitate this.
I agree with that. I just thought you guys said that they didn't want to have the conversation, and it's just not possible to do it.
Correct.
Let's go with the conversation.
I don't know that they don't want to have a conversation, and they may reconsider and say that they will. My initial conversation directly with Yvette was that she doesn't have any capacity to do more than the elders that are already tribal members enrolled in the tribe.
Well, council, we will move on with having another discussion with the CTA. Doesn't seem like that $2,000 burning a hole in our pockets right now, so we can, absolutely. All right, no more discussion. We'll move on to Island Daycare update. I had a discussion with Vanessa. She, I got the flu vaccination today, and I've heard a lot of people having a reaction to those. So she was not able to make it today. And so she has a great candidate, and asked me not to share the name for another week or so. They will know next week if they can utilize that person to be the administrator, and then they'll be filing the application with them as the administrator. I think the candidate's right up the alley. So we're kind of what we were looking for to facilitate the daycare.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I went through the meetings from when the $6,000 was asked and given to. $3,000 was, they split it, $3,000 was for her to pay back. As a business owner, I would need to see the receipts of every single charge for the $6,000 that needs to go to our treasurer. As long as they match up to her purchases, that's fine. We just need the receipts. Everything, the bottom four, I believe you can buy on Amazon. As I know, when I purchase my stuff, you can go back in your orders, go to your details, and print your receipts. Everything else, everyone gets a receipt. I was wondering, did she say anything about the playground?
There was no, this was basically relayed late this afternoon.
Okay.
And so there was no discussion of the funds, anything else in the packet.
Okay.
Just that Warren's gonna be able to make it, and that they do have an administrator that looks like they could start moving forward with submitting a final application next week.
So the only thing, as a council member, I'm more interested is, of course, the funds. And I would like to know before January comes of last year, when she was asking for an extension of paying the $3,000 back, because actually $6,000 if she can't. I want to know before she has to start paying, like, let us know in December if she can't make the $3,000 payments. And if this doesn't work out, I hope that our other purchased orders are staying with the facility.
Yeah, then hopefully, but if we can, maybe move a direction of getting this information from her next week and putting it on the council packet for next meeting and like requesting again for her to be here and have something in writing this time to submit to the council with the budget and receipts and the final plan.
Yeah, I'm super excited. If she gets hers, and then we're on board.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy to forward that request for information to her and put this item back on the agenda for the November, help me out, Mary, 5th, 7th? First meeting in November.
And is that reasonable enough time to have Oliver give a list and budget of things that need to be done?
Given Oliver's hectic trying to keep the water running right now, I am uncomfortable saying what is or isn't possible within Oliver's schedule.
Okay.
So I can certainly ask him, but I know he's got way.
It's looking like a crazy man right now.
We got this nice water line, it's called the Lee King water line. It's,
Well, Sean Seat blew out a fire hydrant today in Sean Seat, and likely Sean Seat didn't have the capability to fix it, so our crew was in the trailer park, as I understand it, all day today, with men and equipment repairing the water line. The trailer park was without water all day today, because there's only one meter, one valve into the trailer park. And that's at the Port St. Nicholas Road, right? So technically, the water system in the trailer park is not a city water system. That system entirely belongs to Sean Seed. So the city's water system ends at the edge of the Port St. Nicholas Road. So when we have a problem like this, we do what we can, which is turn off the valve into the trailer park until it's fixed. And it looked like an extended outage without city crews jumping in and doing the work and providing parks. So, that's, anyway, Oliver and his guys are especially busy, but I can ask him to put that budget back towards the top of his list. November 7th.
All right. There's no more discussion. We'll move on to the Sean Seat Culture Project.
Mr. Mayor, there's no action or motion required. Oliver has been meeting with both Sean Seat and with R&M Engineering that's contracted by Southeast Conference working on the Mariculture project, and just wanted to make sure that the council wasn't surprised if you start seeing Corps of Engineer application public notices or stuff going on with it. So I will do my best to answer any questions that you might have about what Oliver put in the packet, but it's primarily just informational.
I just happened to be driving by that day, so I was there with Trevor, Sandy, and Oliver, and did know that we're collaboratively working together with Sean Seed on Mariculture. Basically said that go ahead and move forward with NEPA that's involved in wanting to put a new bridge across there and access to the facility, because it's such a strenuous process that we'll see where they get with the NEPA. Didn't want to slow anything down on our end.
If you do end up having any questions, please feel free to pigeonhole Oliver if you can find him, or myself.
Make an appointment.
And Southeast Conference is running lead on this, and they're been extremely busy and doing all of the plans to put this facility wherever it sees fit. So the people at Southeast Conference have been great to work with, and showed our appreciation to them when we were over there representing the city of Craig. Their efforts are strenuous all the time, and so dealing with funding, dealing with Congress, dealing with everything. So they're on board, and and kind of making sure we get shuffled in the right direction.
So the plan would be to, I mean, once you go to the core, there's gonna be a lot of environmental assessments.
Well, yeah, on that proposed location, if you start looking at the fill that they're gonna have to do in order to create the size of the facility. And then Chauncey's also proposing to put a bridge in and bypass the bridge, on the, Craig town side of it, to create another access, so the right of way wouldn't be going through the Silver Bay, even though we do have a right of way easement through there. And I talked with Trevor about the city's right of way through there for utilities, water, sewer, electrical, as well. But right now, it's kind of a proposal to get everything down there. There's gonna be a lot of tidelands that are gonna have to be filled in. So yeah, there's a whole process, just like, you know, you do, just like if you were doing a dock. And then, of course, well, that's one of the things we wanted to put down there is a dock facility. And that'll be one of the big processes that's gonna have to happen as well.
Given the federal funding source for the design funds and the high likelihood of federal funding in any resulting construction projects, I think full NEPA is going to be required of just about any of these projects. So yeah, you're going to see NEPA and individual agency reviews for all this work.
So the reason I'm asking some of this is, so this part of Crab Bay where the proposed road would be, the tidal area, is that city?
Yes.
Now, I was under the understanding because of the existing development that's out there, didn't we use the rest of Crab Bay as mitigation? Or there was something like that? Am I off base on that, or?
Yeah, and it's a complicated discussion because that mitigation was really identified in our coastal management plan. And in 2011, the state of Alaska chose not to continue participation in the federal coastal zone management program, which eliminated local coastal management plans. That was the authority that those plans operated under. So there has been some discussion about set-asides, particularly in Crab Bay, as a result of other permitted projects. But the binding decisions for those mitigations probably mostly disappeared when the state stopped participating in the coastal zone management program.
Okay. I just had remembered there was, you know, a mitigation bank basically there.
And ultimately, that would be for the Corps of Engineers to determine. So if the Corps of Engineers has records from previous projects that require that set aside, then that should come up during the Corps' review during the NEPA process, at which point they could choose to modify mitigation or not allow the project or require other mitigation.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to master planning for Craig Cannery Site Track D.
So this is a result of the mayor's comment at the last council meeting about wanting to get these two projects moving forward. So there's two recommendations on the memo. The first is for the Craig Cannery site. We do have money in the budget this year. I intended to use it for engineering costs for utilities. But we do have some money there to advertise an RFP for master planning services. We do not have any money appropriated for master planning of Track D. And so the memo kind of talks about how I come to the $125,000 appropriation. But for us to move forward with Track D, we would need the council to appropriate funds, and $125,000 is a good starting point. That money, I think I forgot to put it in the, oh no, it is, from the city's land development fund. This would be an appropriate expense from the city's land development fund. So that's where I would recommend the council appropriate the money from if it's inclined to move forward with the Track D development. So the two recommended motions are, the first one is just to direct staff to move forward with the master planning for the cannery project using existing budget funds. And the second motion is to appropriate up to $125,000 and start the master planning process for Track D.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm totally for the 125 for the land development. I don't want to spend $1 until we have a conversation with SSI and clear 14C3 land designations. We can't spend $125,000 for something that's designated for education and so forth.
I believe the only stipulation that was at the high school land. Looking through type 14C3, the land could be utilized for housing, for economic development, for commercial, industrial. I think the discussion we were talking about the 14C3 land was when the sale of the trees that we're looking on and the subsurface rights that may be owned by Sea Alaska or Sean Seat with the tree that the city was actually looking out. But we have all of the land out there, I believe. False Island was that we've developed throughout the years was all 14C3 land. So we could basically still utilize the land. I think there was some discussion on if we could actually appropriate a sale of timber on that, which was a great suggestion that you had, because I feel like that's a gray area when you start getting into the subsurface rights.
Yeah, we can't with the timber.
Yeah.
Merchantable timber, ANCSA,
Yep.
Sean Seat would own the right to merchantable, so a timber sale would, we would have to pay royalties to Sean Seat, and obviously any subsurface commercial extraction would require royalty payments to Sea Alaska on ANCSA land. Maybe this is a question we can ask the attorney, Josh. The patent for the ANCSA land to the city of Craig includes some general titles of each area. I'm guessing based on the discussion between the city and Sean Seat at the time. But we've had loose conversations over the years. There's no binding language in the patent on any parcels except, as the mayor said, for the high school parcel. Okay. And the high school parcel had language in the patent that specifically required construction of a high school by a certain date. And that is also the only parcel in any of the patents that has a reversionary clause, which is where the previous owner could take the land back if we didn't do what the deed said. And so that reversionary, that particular parcel, all the conditions were met by the deadline. And so that reversionary clause is there's no longer anything there for a reversionary action. There's no other reversionary clauses in related to any of the other parcels. And we've had the attorney look at this.
And this is the, same track. We had two people come in and propose to do right. Something, and we said that we would like to see us to start looking at developing it for something that would be more fitting for the community of Craig. And part of it's going to be the wetland delineation and the environmental. They're not fish creeks, but they do run down into where fish habitat is. I know that, but the wetland delineation is going to be the big portion of the environmental assessment.
So there is, if you look at the patent, for each of the lands that were conveyed, like I said, a broad description of what the property would be used for. But that has obviously changed over the years, right, as needs changed. And we have not ever found or had any advice from our attorney that there's binding language in the deeds that would prevent us from another public purpose.
Okay.
For the lands.
We're talking about the whole tract D?
Yeah.
D1, D2, the whole 10 acres?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Move to appropriate up to $125,000 from the city land development fund and direct fund to contract master planning and environmental services related to development of tract D.
Second.
Is there any more discussion? Roll call vote?
And,
No, Mike, sorry.
yeah, so My recollection here is a couple meetings ago when we were talking about these properties and starting to look at the potential to develop them. I feel like, at least I remember that we had discussed having the environmental analysis done first to determine, kind of what the lay of the land is, because as the mayor has suggested, we're probably gonna have some setbacks and restrictions for environmental purposes. So it would seem like to me, we should engage with the environmental assessment first. And then once we get that, then we could move into a master plan or a development plan of some kind once we determine what the footprint, the developable footprint looks like. So my concern is I'm okay with going with the 125, but I would like to suggest that we do the environmental services first, assessment first, use some of the funding to do that, and then secondarily, once we have that environmental assessment, look at land development planning. That would seem to be a little more of a deliberative approach.
And I agree with that, because the environmental assessment, I mean, it's all gonna be part of the same plan, but the environmental assessment isn't gonna play for the whole environmental study. Because once they do land delineation down there, and everything we have here on Principal Island is considered wetlands, because all their growth is on there, they dig it down on a wet day. If they find water, black soil, there's 3 criteria that make wetlands. And so when you start buying wetland mitigation, what that is basically they consider it as a fly zone habitat for ducks and migratory animals. And so what you do when you go to develop it, you actually pay for wetland mitigation. So it's 10 acres down there and it's all wetlands. We're gonna have to buy 10 acres of unusable land somewhere to allocate for the wetlands, and that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So until we actually do the environmental assessment on this, and then they tell us what it's actually gonna cost us, and then we may look at it and say, hey, we wanna develop right here because there's not as much wetlands, and we may wanna leave this open for a few more years. But until we know what the whole lot is gonna be, then that's basically just the environmental services. It's not going to be ready to develop or have a complete plan until we know what it's going to cost us. And I think this is why people have steered clear of this property. So with us starting this process is going to actually be the only way that it actually ever gets developed correctly.
And I'm okay with, I'm just fine splitting the two. My thought writing this was that there may be some benefit to the overall project to have one general contractor, likely an architect, put a team together that would include both the environmental surveying work and the master planning. But I'm okay with separating the two out.
I mean, I would really hate to, I mean, I've dealt with the architects and they're really good at getting Google Earth, and they can put a house and they can charge you $25,000, $50,000 for a temporary design on something that's never going to take place. So until we get the environmental study and impact of the property to know what we can actually put down there, then I think that is definitely the direction we need to go at, is doing the environmental analysis before we pay people to start figuring out what plants and trees we want to put around our building, because that's exactly what they do when they start doing master planning with the architects, the landscape architects on these projects. And I think with the $125,000 of the geoanalysis dig, we're gonna have to go in there, dig down. We're gonna have to see what the soil is and everything else. And then as well as the wildlife habitat permits and stuff like that. I think the environmental assessments is definitely where we want to spend the majority of our money.
That might eat up the 125.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it with AT&T. We do a proposal of a 20,000 square foot building, and next thing you know, we got rhododendrons, that a building that's not going to be there, and where the parking lot's going to go, and then, you know, down the road, you put that off for another 10 or 20 years. So in order to spend our money responsibly, I think the suggestion of doing the environmental study with the funds before we move into a master plan on Track D would definitely be the way to go. It's a little different down at the cannery site because we see it's already developed, it's been developed. There's stuff out there that we can do a plan on, but absolutely.
So was that an amended motion?
No, I'm okay with spending that amount of money, because like I said, the environmental assessment may take 125.
And-
I think
and
we can
It won't, just to make sure we're using the right terminology, it won't be an environmental assessment. An environmental assessment would be associated with a federal funded project. And that term is very specific to a federal NEPA process. And we would be doing an environmental survey primarily.
Okay, but still, doing that first, as long as if we have a common understanding as a council, that's what we're asking our city administrator to do first, I'm comfortable with the amendment or the recommendation of the motion.
I mean, and we will be doing a certain type of environmental assessment on there before you can even get funds for a shovel-ready project to the federal government. You gotta have certain things answered, and part of it is gonna be how much wetlands and so on and so forth. So when we have R&M or somebody come in here and we take the excavator out there and we dig test holes and we do the assessment of the land, which I'm gonna suggest probably not looking at doing any wetland delineation until about August when it's really dry. Sprinkle some D1 down there about 2 feet, and it'll probably save us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'd also suggest the people that are doing your environmental survey isn't the same people that's doing your design, because that keeps it a lot cleaner. A lot of people make a lot of money off designing, as well as the environmental surveys.
So why do we have to choose one or the other? The FY25 capital budget's already taken care of the planning for the.
Well, it's not a choice. It's two separate recommendations. Just
One motion is for this, the other motion was appropriate funds so we're on recommendation 2 right now. And that's motions covering track D.
Okay.
I believe we already allocated $50,000 for the cameras.
There's $75,000 allocated.
Allocated
So there,
already.
I'm not looking to appropriate any funds.
Yeah.
Just a motion from the council to use those funds specifically for master planning. Like I said, the original intent with that money, with the budget committee discussions, was to use that money for engineering.
And any money that I think we're gonna be allocating I think we should probably bring back to the council to make sure that we're looking at using these, funds the way we're thinking of them before we start allocating, signing contracts with the planners or anything like that.
So I'm okay doing the environmental survey work, contracting that out first and seeing how far we can get with the $125,000, and then following up with master planning RFP after that.
I'd like to put out an RFP on people to see how much it would cost them to do the environmental assessment, and then like R&M, they're local, somebody else can look at it and we can be like, we want an environmental assessment on track D, lot 10, and then we'll know what the environmental firm's gonna actually cost us, so we could put something out for the development, and we can know where this 125,000 is gonna actually, how far it's gonna go.
That would be the course of action,
Yeah.
if I'm understanding the council correctly, is we would put out a request for proposals for firms to bid on doing the environmental survey work.
Yes.
And then we would complete that process and ostensibly follow it up in the future by putting out a request for proposals for master planning.
All right. So roll call vote.
Janice Trojan?
Yes.
Sean Thomas?
Yes.
Josh Bennett?
Yes.
Michael Kevich?
Yes.
Liz Garber?
Yes.
Thank you, council. So there's still the other recommendation, which is to use the FY25 appropriated funds for master planning on the cannery project.
Move to direct.
Move to direct staff to advertise for master planning services for the Craig Cannery site using funds appropriated in the FY25 capital budget.
Second.
Any discussion?
Only thing I would like to add is hopefully everything can be underground.
Yes,
know-
we're gonna have some, as soon as we start running power down there, we're gonna have some things that we'll have to address. Just due to
The feed, yeah.
to the feed and, the outdated stuff that's down there.
everything's already too busy and old. It's time to, if we're gonna start new, we might as well get up to date.
Yeah, that'll be easy for the master planning. It just means the architect doesn't have to draw power poles. It'll come more into play when we have the engineering done.
Right. Yeah. All right.
Just a roll call vote, just a voice, there's,
Voice vote?
money's already.
Money's already allocated, all right, we already,
It's just a voice vote, but it's fine, Mr. Mayor.
voice vote, all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, passes. Moving on to capital budget process.
All right, real quick, I brought this up in my staff report at the last meeting. Given a number of reasons, the council's been interested in what capital projects we fund or don't fund. The potential to have the school district in the mix, looking for capital project funding, and you know, just kind of the limited funds that are available. I think there's value in having the budget committee more involved in the capital budget process, and actually give the department managers an opportunity to come in and make a case for the projects that they're presenting to the budget committee, so that when we start paring projects down, we're doing projects that match the council's priorities. And you've had an opportunity to hear why a department manager thinks projects are important. So when we don't fund projects, we kind of understand the trade-offs. So that being the case, I don't need a motion, but I'm looking for, if the council is okay with this process, I'd like to form the budget committee at the next council meeting and start budget meetings probably in late November, specifically to schedule budget meetings to allow the department managers to come in and present their capital projects. In the meantime, the departments have been preparing 5-year capital project projections and sending them to me. So they're already leaning forward towards being able to have these conversations.
Perfect.
See some nods.
Yeah, fine with me.
Okay. I will have Kimber prepare, and make a note, we'll have Kimber prepare a memo looking for budget committee volunteers at the November 7th meeting.
Moving on to the appointment of Haley Armstrong to City Craig Planning Commission. And we appoint her, she's gonna make us wait till the very last to stop the next planning commission.
Still here.
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question. The letters of intent, our letters of interest weren't included, and I was just wondering why.
Sorry, Brian, I heard you.
I was gonna say primarily because it's the mayor's job to appoint, not the council. So the council, really, the council's job in these appointments is not to look at all of the candidates' qualifications for the appointment. The council's job is to either approve or disapprove the mayor's appointment.
And honestly, what I've done and what I've been doing when it comes into appointing people, I actually call them. Just a letter sometimes doesn't represent them, 100%. And so the answers that I got from Haley, both of them had the same answer. Brian approached me and thought there was a need for the planning commission, but she said she wanted to get her feet wet and start off there, and maybe someday be a council member someday, and looking at the longevity of the process and stuff like that. So after interviewing the applicants, I chose that Haley interviewed the best over the phone.
And I'm happy to include those in the future if the council wants. It's just, I think you guys understand that the council packets are already very large, obviously, and it's not possible for us to provide every bit of information related to an item and keep your council packets under 500 pages or so.
And then,
Well, it would be just interesting to find out how many applicants there were, because for a long, long
The
time.
list of names is on the memo.
Mike doesn't live in Craig.
yeah, and this is vacant spot is only till January 30th, 2025. They're just taking on Kevin McDonald's role. So this is just until
Okay.
2025. So this was a vacant spot that we had on it.
And the memo does show, Millie, that there were three
Okay,
letters of interest in the names.
okay, thank you.
Just to address Josh's comment, why would we have someone that doesn't live in the city of Craig be on the planning?
We wouldn't because they're not qualified, but we can't tell them not to submit a letter of interest.
Okay,
Right?
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I would like to know.
That would be a really good discussion if that's who the mayor had appointed.
I'm like, what?
But,
Okay.
Dodge that
and I think Mr. Rose's application was actually not a recent letter. It was, he submitted an electronic submission through the website 6 months ago.
And to be fair, I didn't actually interview Mr. Rose because well, I actually interviewed Chad and Haley. Well, yeah, just put that out there just in case one day he says, why didn't you call me? It was like, well, that's why, so.
Short of it is, he applied, so his name is on a list for whatever reason, because of qualification or being the right person. The mayor didn't appoint him, which is probably the right decision in this case. And here we are.
All right. Do we have a motion to confirm the appointment of Haley Armstrong?
Confirm the appointment of Haley Armstrong to the Craig Planning Commission to fill a vacancy expiring January 30th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Oh, I have a
Oh,
question.
question, there's questions, okay, perfect.
So the only question I have is every time the expiration comes up, then a whole nother list of people put their name into that
Yeah.
normally?
Normally, sometimes if people are doing a good job, I've been told that,
Yes.
that we retain them on the planning commission out of respect of their, that they're doing a good job.
Since I've been here, I think Jeremy has to be back on. So,
Oh, I've got planning commissioners that have been on the commission for 20 years. So we have a number of planning commissioners regularly throw their name in the hat for reappointment for multiple terms on the planning commission.
so everyone has to be reappointed or has to be,
Yes.
okay.
It's not an election process, but it's easy to think of it like council seats, right? Every 3 years, the term expires for a planning commissioner. And so a planning commissioner has to be appointed or reappointed to that seat every 3 years. Just like resigning city council members, if a planning commissioner resigns in the middle of a term, then the appointment serves out the rest of that term and then has an opportunity to throw their name in the hat to start a new 3-year term. So Haley will certainly have the opportunity to throw her name back in the hat at the end of January for a 3-year term starting in January.
What are some of the qualifications for being on the planning commission?
Primarily that they're a City of Craig resident.
And you put your name in there and you want to volunteer.
We generally prefer breathing and able to stand on their own, but that's not a requirement in code. So I'm sorry, I'm probably forgetting one or two, but the primary requirement to be on the Craig Planning Commission is that you are a resident of the City of Craig.
I'm sorry to interrupt. How many appointments are on the commission?
There are 5 seats.
Okay.
And the planning commission, the chairman is one of the 5 appointed planning commissioners. So they don't have a separate chairman like the mayor is separate from the council members. But there are five planning commissioners. And so every year, generally 2 seats are open for reappointment. Every 3rd year, 1 seat is open for reappointment.
Thank you.
And it's very interesting. After my 21 years with the city, I went to planning and zoning just to see what they do. It's very interesting. And sometimes they don't have, they don't have enough business. They wait till the next meeting, but I enjoyed it.
Next Thursday.
She's busy.
Any more questions? Can we do this with the voice vote?
Yes.
All those in favor?
No. I only get to say it once in a while.
All right, thank you, Haley,
Thank you.
and thank you, council.
Yes, thank you for putting your name in the hat. Congratulations.
And I asked, I didn't twist any arms, okay? I asked nicely.
Yeah, they both, the first response, they both was that Brian asked me to. Then the questions got harder after that, so, yeah. All right, motion to move into executive session.
Oh, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
and so that I don't have to take the notes, we put council comments prior to the executive.
okay, well, do we have any council comments?
I do have one.
Yes.
So, one of the things that I learned at Southeast Conference, I mentioned before how there's strong interest in trying to reestablish our run to Prince Rupert with ferries.
Yeah.
And then I continued, I'm good friends with one of the borough members over there, so I continued a conversation with him about that, and coincidentally, I had expressed an interest in trying to maybe form a committee. There actually is, that's ongoing right now, so there's a port community, there is a committee working to be established in Southeast. It'll be called Port Communities Group through AML, and they are focused solely on AMS issues and cruise ship related things. Well, we don't have any interest in, well, actually, that's not true either. We do have interest in cruise ship stuff now, but nonetheless, he was looking at this as just ferry port cities. That's what their consideration was. And I asked him to consider, the city of Craig as a port community. We were the primary sponsor of IFA, and I think Prince of Wales should be represented on this anyways. We have many people that would love to get Prince Rupert. So anyways, I hope that at some point as they move forward forming this this port communities group, that we get an invitation to this, and I would recommend that if we do get the invitation, we participate.
Yes, and we like to keep in the loop, and definitely when they do start the process of writing a letter of support, we would suggest all the communities on POW, because that ferry has served us for many years. I've actually never taken the ferry to Bellingham. I always, as a kid, went to Prince Rupert and drove through Canada through all the years. So, and then we went basketball trips and so on and so forth. So thanks for taking the lead and doing that, Mike.
I was writing something down, Mike. Did you say that this port community group is being formed through Southeast Conference?
No, through AML, Western Municipal League.
Yeah, and we're part of AML, so,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So we definitely be.
I'll send an email off to Niels and ask Niels to make sure that we're included in any correspondence related to it.
Okay.
Yeah, Catch Can can't forget about us over here.
I didn't say it that way.
No, but
That crossed my mind.
Yeah, it's like, probably drive the ferry Prince Rupert more than they do when we go to catch camp, so. All right, any more council comments?
I just can't believe how fast this year has gone
Oh,
by.
man. I'm just happy that we finally got the 100 inches of rain that we didn't get all summer in 2 days, so it's like, my lake is full, and it's like, wow, it's never gonna stop raining, we're back to Southeast. I thought we were, yeah.
It's been something this month.
Yeah. All righty, no more comments?
Okay, move to convene an executive session of the Craig City Council to discuss matters pursuant to section 711 of the employee handbook that tend to prejudice the reputation and character of any person and are subject to employee confidentiality.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, if you'll give us about 5 minutes at rest here to
Absolutely.
clear the room and turn off the phone and recorder.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the chance to listen to you guys.
Well, thank you guys.
Come back anytime.
You're always
I always feel bad for those people at the very bottom and
Yes.
sitting here the whole time.
But can we move them up? Can't we just,
If you,
We can do it
beginning,
any way you
ask.
I think, can't the mayor like motion?
I did that one time, and I got out of order, and the packet was all messed up, and I would never do that again. I'm just joking. It was with the staff reports. I was like, Ely was doing 712s, and I was like, hey, maybe we get Chief out of here so he can go to bed early and so I, yeah, but
Oh, it's